a little bit of a morning routine. I figured I'd do something a little bit different. So what we're gonna end up doing is kind of the morning routine. And let's see if we can get everything set here. I think we're good here. Usually what I'll end up doing is I'll get up about 4:30, 5 o'clock. I've got chronic pain issues, so trying to sleep in is a little problematic, because if I get usually about 7 hours of sleep, I'm good. Sometimes I can get 8. But the problem is after that, my back just has problems, and if I'm not moving around, then the pain gets worse, and pain gets worse to the point of where it wakes me up. So yeah, lots of fun stuff with that. But as soon as I get up and then I start moving around, I do my stretches and everything, that seems to alleviate some of it, but there's still always pain there. So yeah, it's kind of problematic. But it is what it is. Taking medication and stuff for that. But usually what I'll end up doing is I'll get up, like I said, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, maybe 5:30. And then I'll make my morning latte, which is what I've already had. And then, as you can see, I'm out of creatine. Oh no. So I need to pick up some creatine, and then I'll go on and I'll make my morning shake. So a lot of people don't like protein shakes for some reason. I don't know why. I did an experiment with protein shakes just to live off of protein shakes for a month. It was interesting. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but it is what it is. But if you're trying to gain weight and build muscle, of course, your nutrition plan, a normal nutrition plan where you have enough carbs and proteins and fats and so on and so forth, what that'll end up doing is really, you don't need protein shakes. For me, it's more of a convenience thing. So there's that. Let me put this up. So there's the convenience of that, and it's just a great way for me to get additional protein. And so each scoop of this protein powder ends up being 22 point something grams, so I get about 2.5, so 44. It's about 50 grams of protein that I'll have in the morning. So I'll have that going on, and then throw in about a cup of milk on there, and then some water, and boom, we're good to go. So I'll put this up. And then after that, what I'll end up doing is going through, and I'll come over here and we'll check out the weather to see what is going on. And it looks like we got a little bit of rain here. If you can see on the top of the little places there. Yeah, it's currently raining. So yeah, we do that. And I'll sit down and I'll check the news. I'll take some time to myself, and then sometimes I'll just be quiet and kind of do the meditation thing. And then the wife is asleep, so in the darkness, I'll come back to my room, my office, and let's go ahead and we'll set this here. And yeah, so that's what we end up going on. It works out pretty good. A lot of people end up asking me, well, what do you end up doing as you're retired in Korea? And it's like, well, I got a lot of stuff going on. It's one of those things. as you're retired,
It's one of those things.
you got to find something to do, and that's kind of one of the bigger things that ends up as you're retired. You got to have a plan. You got to have something to do, and a lot of people don't. And so, what I really don't like is when I see people retire and they retire overseas to some other country and they jump into a bottle and that is their retirement. You know, their whole thing is to be on the beach and drink and drink and drink alcohol and get drunk. And it's like that's not retirement. That's not really a life. Okay, so so you got to have a plan. You got to have some type of activity. You got to engage your mind, basically your body, your heart, and your soul, and all of that comes into play. So, and you have to enjoy where you're retired, whether it's in the United States or in an overseas country. You really have to get to a point of where you have to enjoy where you're at. Recently, I had a video. Let's just kind of, I'm going to kick back here a little bit. Kind of. Recently, there was a video where an individual ended up. Let me see if I can get this going on. Excuse me, as I. But recently, there was a person in one of my older videos. This individual ended up talking about, that he lives in Korea and he hates Korea, and he's been here a number of years and he really hates Korea, and it's like, don't do it, and this was in an older video when I had first come to Korea. We had first come to Korea, and we had already made the decision to retire in Korea. We had sold everything in our house, the car, the truck, the house, the guns, the ammo, everything in the kitchen junk drawer, and we sold everything. We left with a couple of suitcases, and that was it. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting, and it was a big jump. But we're not your typical people. So part of the issue with that was a lot of people, before you retire someplace, you should check out where you're going and the locations and see if you even want to live in that country. We had done that before while I was in the military. So it was kind of a thing that was going on, and we had already knew the area that we were going to be in. We did enough online searching, and we had spent years in Korea before, so we kind of knew the area really well. And we wanted to be around the Camp Humphreys area, near Pyeongtaek, which is about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours south of Seoul. And from Pyeongtaek and where we live is about 20 minutes. So it's not bad. But, if you don't like where you're at, and this one individual, getting back to the guy that commented on one of my earlier ones, he says, don't do it, it's terrible, it's bad. He said it was, Korea was the New Jersey of Asia. And I'm like, wow, what a comparison. That is absolutely insane. And so the first thing that came to my mind was, how miserable are you, and yet you stay here? It was kind of an interesting little thing, because you have people that are in America that they're miserable, they're stuck, and they don't want to go anywhere, and it's just, oh, this sucks and I can't, blah blah blah, but it's always Debbie Downer stuff. And then, but nobody thinks about the other side of the coin, like this gentleman, and saying that, don't do it, don't move to Korea, don't retire here, it's terrible, it's horrible, I've been here a number of years, Korea is the New Jersey of Asia. And I'm like, wow, how miserable do you have to be? Pent up emotions, frustration, dislike, all of these things that come into play for you to lash out at somebody who is already in Korea at that time and had already made the decision to retire here. We've been here over 2.5 years now, so obviously the honeymoon phase is over. You know, we're enjoying our time here. We like it. Obviously, we would like to retire in Hawaii or, you know, something like that, but it's just too expensive. But Korea is kind of like a joint hub around where we can go to the Philippines. This September, we're going to be going to Vietnam and going to Sapa. You know, there's a lot of different countries. I even want to go to China and check out some things. But, you know, Singapore, Malaysia, we've been to Thailand. That was interesting. Love the vacation there. You know, we want to go up to Chiang Mai and check that out. So, yeah, a lot of different things that you can do from this central location, a lot of different Asian countries and stuff. So that was kind of our thinking. And plus the wife's family's here. And, you know, we set boundaries, you know. But for somebody to be that miserable and to say, don't do it, my question is, why are you still here in Korea? Go find if Korea is indeed, you know, the New Jersey of Asia, why don't you go somewhere else? Find a place that you enjoy. That would make more sense to me. You know, go to Thailand, go to, you know, Philippines, go to Malaysia, Portugal, you know, whatever it is, find a place to where you can be happy. And a lot of people just, I don't understand why people put up with the pain and suffering. If you came here to Korea, you obviously had some good reasons, but I think this is kind of indicative of what happens with people who think that the change of location is going to fix them on the inside. That the change of location is going to take away their misery. It's going to take away their bad attitude. It's going to take away how they look at life, and suddenly it's going to change it into something magical and fun. And there is that honeymoon period, you know. So it really ends up that we need to be careful with that. And anytime you go somewhere, you'll experience that. And I've experienced that a lot while I was in the military because we moved around every couple of years. You know, we went overseas, you know, I've been to Panama, you know, a bunch of different places. So moving and that excitement and, you know, sometimes a little frustration of how things are different in different places all adds to the excitement of coming to that new location. But after a while, the newness is going to wear off. You know, the kind of like there was a YouTuber, foodie booty or foodie beauty or something, some American lady, and she would do videos and stuff like that. And she's kind of an obese, overweight person. And then she hooked up with some guy and then went to, I think, Dubai or something like that. And she became Muslim, which is fine. You do whatever you want. But she got there, and all her beginning videos were, oh, look how awesome this is. Look how, you know, the desert, it's nice and quiet and serene and blah, blah, blah. And just the praises of the foreign country that she was in. And then it seemed like it was really, really pushed. And then eventually it got to the point of where she's frustrated because now she can't have the freedom of speech like she did in the United States living in that type of a country. So it was like everything turned sour. And so it went from this is the best place in the world, and then it went a total 180 degrees. And then next thing you know, she ran out and left. So, and going back to, she's a Canadian citizen. So she went back to Canada, supposedly. But you will see this in people who retire overseas. They'll jump and they'll see the videos. They'll, you know, like the guy who ended up, you know, who now thinks Korea is the New Jersey of Asia. And, the newness is worn off and now they're still miserable. If you're miserable in the United States, you'll probably be miserable overseas. Okay. And because of the isolation that people experience of being foreigners in a foreign country, that isolation magnifies the problems that you have. You'll get over your honeymoon period, and then reality sets back in. It's like, ooh, the excitement of finding an apartment, ooh, the excitement of getting a driver's license and buying a car and opening bank accounts and getting phone service and how all this works and online shopping, so different than in the United States. And then after all that wears off and you get down to reality in everyday life, you're still the same person. You're just in a different location. And so after all that newness wears off, people will find out that they're miserable and they'll blame it on the country that they're in. When in fact, they're miserable because they're miserable. Okay. Like I said, if you're miserable in the United States, you come to a foreign country and you have a little bit of a honeymoon period, kind of like a vacation. Ooh, this is great, this is new, this is different. And then reality sets in and it comes to the point of where it's like, and then it's miserable. And then every little thing that frustrates you, you've been pushing down and bottling up. And then finally, there's the straw that breaks the camel's back and something happens and you just explode. And then you take that out on other people who retire, kind of like the gentleman did on a comment that he left saying, Korea's New Jersey, don't retire in Korea, it's terrible, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's telling, and maybe you need to go back to the United States. But then again, you're probably still going to be if you left the United States and you came to Korea, there must have been good reasons to come to Korea, but now you don't think they're good reasons. And so really that tends to make me think that you're just a miserable human being. And I'm not saying that in an insulting way. I'm saying that as maybe there's something that needs to change inside of you. And if you don't fix that, because you'll be miserable anywhere you go. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. So yeah, being in Korea, and in the mornings, I just kind of rant and go over news and things like this, and I go over some comments. But it's really interesting to see the different dynamics of people. Some people think that if I change my location, that will fix my problems. And it's like, no, if you have problems, you'll still have those problems, or at least the root of those problems will be wherever you go. So if you're not comfortable in your own skin in the United States, you probably won't be comfortable in your own skin in a foreign country. And unfortunately, that's when you get to the people who are retired and they're miserable, and so they drink themselves into a bottle to mask the pain and the frustration and the desperation. It ends up they hate the country that they're in, and so the only relief that they get is through alcohol. Drinking themselves to sleep every night, or start drinking at 9, 10 in the morning. You've seen some videos that when we were in Thailand, man, I remember we woke up and going out, and it was like 8 o'clock in this morning, and this guy is pounding down, and he was a retiree there in Thailand, and it was like, talked with him a little bit, and he's like, yeah, this is great, and he's already 3 sheets to the wind, and it was like, wow, he's getting a big beer belly and the whole 9 yards. But that was his retirement, is to drink and screw. But talking with him, he was kind of a miserable individual, and he didn't have any plans to work on himself. to better himself. It was just kind of like this spiraling, you know, when you flush a turd down the toilet and it kind of swirls around before it actually goes down. That's what some people end up doing when they retire in overseas locations. You know, they're like, oh, they get into a bottle, they start doing drugs or whatever, or they're just a miserable person, and then they're isolated being in Korea or in whatever country, and then they're even more isolated because of the substance abuse that they do, and then they become alcoholics or drug addicts or both, and you know nobody likes being around those people. You know, of course, if you're paying money, you know probably the girls that you're paying is yeah, that they love it. You know, they'll take the money and run, but you end up being a miserable person. So retirement is really big. Retirement, I think, for me, uh, in seeing my grandparents, uh, my parents, they didn't get to retire. My dad died in prison, so that was kind of a thing. He retired, but he just didn't retire the way you know most people do. And then yeah, it's just kind of this weird thing. You know, you retire and then you cut the grass and you go play golf and you know that's kind of it. And then as you get older, you lessen your physical activity. You just kind of like my grandfather. My grandfather was awesome. I love my grandfather. Vincent, he was in Korea. He was in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was in the Army Air Corps, and so when he retired, he did what was it, 40 years of government service. So he did 30 in the military, and then did 10 as government service, and then he retired. So he went the full ride, double dip, the whole 9 yards. But when he retired, there's only so many times you can cut the grass. You know, there's only so many times you can clean the pool, and then it becomes monotonous. And then his physical activity just kept getting less and less and less. And then he just listened to Rush Limbaugh on his radio, his little portable transistor radio, which was so awesome. I thought it was just so cool. You know, and he'd read the newspapers and complain about politics and stuff like that. But it just ended up there was this shrinking sphere of activity into where really, even in the United States, you know, he had his wife, my grandmother and stuff, and they were awesome. But they really just didn't have a lot of physical activity. And that can be very draining on people. So, you know, whether you're in the United States or whether you're overseas, you got to have a plan to be physically active, mentally active, socially active, and that's where I'm deficient in. I'm not real good with people. I was an instructor in the military as part of my duties, and I was a firearms instructor after I got out. You know, self-defense and firearms and concealed carry weapons. I was part of a contract team that taught firearms at Fort Carson to the MPs. So we had, you know, would have 100 or 200 people teaching classes. I can speak with the best of them. I'm not afraid to be in front of a group of people. But when it comes to relationships, individual one-on-one relationships, I'm very well reserved. And a lot of that is because I'm dealing with a lot of issues from my time in the military. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. So, but we're gonna go. I think what we'll do is we'll go back out where it's a little bit lighter. But yeah, it's a different dynamic. So I got to work on my social skills, try to get some relationships. We'll see how that goes. It is what it is. And then, let's see. How's this going to work? Is this going to be good? Probably. Is that good? I think that's good. So. Yeah, so that's what we got going on. Just kind of an interesting thing to. I think you have to enjoy where you're at, and anybody can enjoy where they're at, but you have to be able to accept yourself, and you need to be at peace or content wherever you're at. And if you can do that, then your retirement, whether it's in the United States or in a foreign country, then you'll do well. But if you're not comfortable in your own skin, that's where problems are going to pop up. So, yeah. You know, I feel sorry for the guy who said that Korea was like New Jersey, which, when you think about it, look at the crime in New Jersey. It really isn't. There really isn't no comparison, because in Korea, the crime rate is so low. I've never felt unsafe here in Korea. New Jersey, not so much. You know, you look at the crime stats just on crime alone, and you'll see that there's huge differences. If you look at Korea, and I'm not saying, you know, everybody should love Korea, but I'm just saying that comparison is not justifiable, in my opinion. So it is what it is. But then you look at economics, you know, you look at your budget. Our budget in the United States was high, and we didn't think we'd be able to retire until much later in life. And when we found out we could come to Korea, you know, and we did a detailed investigation on the expenses, we found that we could save about half of our expenses. So, and Korea isn't even one of those countries where the expenses are cheap, you know, but they're half of what they were in the United States. So, yeah, and that brings a lot of relief as well. The biggest source of frustration for people is money and debt, their finances. They don't make enough money, the bills just keep coming, expenses go up every year. You know, the main reason for divorce is finances. So, you know, you gotta have your ducks in a row. And the peace that gives of being retired in a foreign country, where your expenses are half or less than what they were in the United States, especially if you're in places where, you know, your property tax in like Illinois is like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year or whatever, and all of these other expenses. We were in Colorado, but still we had some high expenses, and the jumps every year were just huge. And you start doing the projections on towards retirement, you're like, no wonder 3/4 of the seniors that are eligible for retirement are not going to retire because they can't make the ends meet. So that's kind of the problematic thing. But when we saw that we could come to an overseas location, and we saw that we could pay half or less, and then it's like, wow, whoa, that's cool. We could retire overseas, but even better than that, we were able to retire overseas and retire early. So that was kind of a cool thing right there. But there's always problems, and I think some of the issues that people face with overseas retirement, or retirement in general, unless you go to like Florida and big retirement cities where everybody's retired, you retire. The majority of people are not retired, you know, except for the exceptions that I noted. But like for us, we're retired. We retired early. My family, everybody's still working. All the people that are around us are still working. You know, it ends up, I think somebody left a comment. I can't read the comments. It's too small because I have the phone switched around. But everybody's retired, so there's a little bit of isolation being retired just in and of itself. And if you go overseas, unless you read, write, and speak the language like a native, and even then there's a little bit of isolation, generally. So you need to be aware of that. Some people can't handle it. For me, I'm fine. I got my wife, I got, you know, my hobbies and the things that I do. I got the gym, I go to the military base on post, which today is a workout day. Today is going to be legs and shoulders. So we go to the gym 3 days a week and we bust it out. But yeah, if you're not comfortable in your own skin and in retirement, it's going to be harder for you. And especially if your social life in the United States involves a lot of people and activities and you have real good relationships, most likely when you go overseas, that will be deficient because it's hard to have those relationships in a foreign country just because of the dynamic of you're the foreigner. There's not as many of you, there's not as many expats in the foreign country that you're in who are retired versus being retired in the United States where you could go to entire cities where, Arizona, New Mexico, Florida, places like that, places in Texas where basically entire cities and towns are nothing but retirees. Housing projects are nothing but people in golf carts and they're all retired. You're not going to find that overseas generally. You'll have pockets of expats and pockets of retirees, but they will be a lot less than what you would see in the United States. So, yeah, another interesting thing that we got here. So, but yeah, that's what we got going on, and yeah, it's just another interesting thing. People that retire overseas and think that will fix everything, and it doesn't. If you're looking on a country to fix everything in your life, probably not going to happen. Like I said, you'll probably get a honeymoon period, it'll be exciting, and then the bottom will drop out, and reality sets in, and life will come rearing its ugly head, and you'll get to that everyday normal life where you're confronted with you, and if you're not comfortable with you, you can still be miserable. You still have problems, you still need to work on yourself. So, no matter where you retire. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing there. And you have some people that will retire overseas and it'll be the greatest thing for it. They can have a lot of problems in the United States, and there is some credence to be said about leaving a location because it has bad memories and going to a place that's brand new so you can start out fresh and new. That is a thing. But eventually, it's going to come back to, are you comfortable in your own skin? And I think that's the thing that not a lot of people think about when they retire overseas. And yeah, it is what it is. So, something to think about. So usually, in my morning routine, like I said, I'll get up about 5 o'clock every morning, and I have my latte. I'll think, meditate, kind of chill out, check out news. Maybe I'll do a little bit of painting and some hobby stuff. Nothing real, and that's kind of rare. But I'll just I like the peace and the quiet. The wife's sleeping, she's doing her thing. We got our time apart, and I like starting off slow. I like starting off everything quiet. I don't have music playing, and it just kind of sit. Sometimes I'll just sit and, look outside, and, as the light is starting to come up, and as the day comes in, I just slowly ramp up. So, yeah, it's kind of a good thing. And then later on, I'll have my protein drink or whatever, and then I'll start, I'll definitely have my latte. I already had my latte earlier this morning, but then I'll check out news and current events and things like that, and then maybe I'll work on some stuff like I'm writing. I'm doing a book on physical fitness. I think I got like almost 300 pages. I don't know if I'll ever publish it, but just writing it is something different to do. So yeah, it's you definitely got to have a plan for retirement. And like today, we'll end up going to the gym for about 2 hours, and then sometimes we'll go out to eat after that on post, on the military base, or off post. And matter of fact, today's going to be an interesting day because I have an interview There was a magazine that contacted me that wanted to do an interview with me about leaving the United States and retiring overseas. So that's going to be today at about 2 o'clock. So that's going to be interesting. We'll see how that pops out. So this journalist, she does articles with people who are retired overseas and do that overseas living thing. So that is kind of interesting. She found my videos on YouTube. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I like it. It'll be interesting. And then there was somebody else that contacted me. What was it? I think it was about 6 months in. And another lady contacted me and she wanted to do an interview. And she said, yeah, I would like to do an interview with you and so on and so forth. And then started chatting and stuff. And then she found out that we'd only been here 6 months. And she's like, I gotta wait until you've been here a couple years. And this is a totally different person, but I get it, because of that honeymoon period, but we kind of knew that we were going to live here. And even after we got here, it was like, yeah, this is where we're supposed to be. And that might change, there's other considerations that come into play. Like as we get older, I'm going to be 59 here pretty damn quick. But as we get older, we might need some assisted care. So, I don't know, we're kind of thinking about that, and that might be the Philippines. Because assisted living here and getting that care is pretty expensive here in Korea. Whereas places like Thailand or Philippines, that care is substantially less. So, there still might be a change in that. We'll see what happens. And it depends on what happens here locally, here in Korea. There could be aggressions between North and South Korea as we're going through this whole thing that's going on. We get a new president here in South Korea, so we're dealing with that. He's a little bit liberal-minded, and I don't agree with some of the things that that he's doing or wants to do. Like one of the things he wants to end up, he wants to pay everybody like 100,000 won, which is around $100 or something, as to boost the economy. And it's like, well, you have to raise taxes, you have to borrow money to get that money, and then to pay that back, you have to raise taxes. And you're kind of kicking the can down the road, and a one-time payment of 100,000 won is just going to be a little tiny blip on the economy. So really, it's just to make people feel good. What would be better is if you lowered the tax rates of everybody a little bit so they have more spendable money, and then that would be a long-term influx of cash into the Korean economy. So obviously he doesn't think that way. But a lot of his things that he wants to do requires borrowing and creating more money in Korea, which with that influx of cash could be problematic because it's an artificial rise in the economy. But with more money into the economy, there's also, that can lead to inflation, to more inflation. So yeah, it could be problematic. Will it ever get to the point where it's real bad? I don't know. I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday, and some people are thinking that the Korean won will go up to 1,500 won to the dollar. But as we were talking, I checked, and when the IMF came in, and the financial crisis that was here in Korea, I think it was like 1430 or 1450 won per US dollar. US dollar to Korean won was 1450-ish. I don't think we'll see 1,500 won, because that would mean that we're in worse condition than during the bailout of 97, 98 with the IMF here in Korea. So I don't see that happening. I think they'll, and what I think and what'll be could be two totally different things. So I don't know, but it's just kind of interesting. There could be political reasons, there could be natural disasters, there could be, like I said, aggressions between North Korea and South Korea again, that could, lend us to say, hey, we're time to go. That's a possibility. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Or it could be just something that we need assisted care and assisted living, so we need to go to a place that offers those things at a much lower price. So, yeah, there's that. Other than that, that's what we got going on. Nothing too exciting. Again, the honeymoon is worn off, and of course we've been here just over 2.5 years now. So our honeymoon has been over for a long time. I think our honeymoon period was, for me, I think it was like, I don't even think it was a honeymoon period. I think it was more of being in a new place, getting used to doing new things. We had to put in for our visas, and we had to wait 2.5 months for that. So there really wasn't a honeymoon period. It was just kind of a waiting period. And then temporary living and an Airbnb, and then we had a rental, a month-to-month rental, and then we got our Korean registration cards, our visa was approved, and then we I ended up buying this apartment. So, and then moving into here, and so, then getting used to a new place that you move into, you want to make it yours. We've been doing improvements to this apartment for a while, and then we recently decided, because we were going to move to a smaller apartment, and then rent this big one out, this 4-bedroom, 2-bath. But really, we just made the decision that we like this. We've got room. It's 1,600 square feet, somewhere around there. 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It's great size for us. Good for the hobbies. Wife is going to have her own hobby room. As soon as our daughter leaves, she's going to convert the guest bedroom into her little hobby room area. So we have our own spaces to do our things, and you have to have that. So we still might buy another apartment, rent it out. So we're just kind of holding fast on that. We could technically buy an apartment right now, but that would pretty much drain everything that we have as far as savings. And it's like, buy an apartment and rent it out. You got to have an emergency fund. You have to have, some resources because you're going to have to do some type of upgrades when you buy an apartment. There's always, just like buying any property, you buy it as a rental, there's always something to be fixed, before you put it on the market, and then, the taxes and so on and so forth that you have to pay. Want to have an emergency fund for that rental property, and then of course we also want to have, a savings and emergency fund for our own lives. So even though we could technically buy an apartment right now, it's like, let's hold off. And right now, property prices have kind of rebounded a little bit, especially in the areas that we're looking at. We'll wait and see. We'll save up more money, and if indeed the Korean economy goes down because of the president and whatever things that happen, on that side, if the Korean economy gets worse, usually that tends for the American dollar to have a really good exchange rate against Korean won. So we can actually make money in a poor economy here in Korea. So that's another good thing to be an American expat in a foreign country, is that generally the dollar has a real strong conversion rate. And if the country that you're in ends up having a poor economy, you can get a better exchange rate. So your money goes further. You can get better deals. So on one hand, if the Korean economy does go down even more, and there is more inflation, we're going to see more turnovers of properties and houses. Real estate's going to take a dip, just kind of like what it does in the United States, and there'll be deals to be made. And I think that would be the time to buy an apartment, because then they're property rich, but they're cash poor. So a lot of people will be selling their properties at lower prices, and that's when you can get a good deal, is when the economy is bad. And maybe even bank-owned property. We thought about that, but we got such a streaming deal on this place because the seller was motivated. And now the price of this property has gone up by a huge amount. And again, it's all based off the location, but we have already made money on this. Of course, you don't really make money until you sell. But if we're going to stay here, well, you know, it's nice to see that everything's paid off, and it doesn't matter if the economy's good or if the economy's bad. We have a place to live. And if the economy's bad, we'll just keep living here until the economy changes. Kind of similar to what we did in the United States. So, yeah. So other than that, it's kind of interesting. We're gonna, you know, take some trips. We're gonna do some more. We're gonna do some traveling here in Korea. We want to go to the ocean or someplace close to the ocean, so we're gonna look for some beaches. We've already been to Hyundai Beach down in Busan. But we want to go to some other places, just kind of chill out for like, you know, 4 or 5 days and just be close to the beach and the water. Of course, it's the rainy season now, so, but even then, you know, it's not raining 100% of the time. It's monsoon season, but for like the next 10 days, there's supposed to be elements of rain throughout Korea. Like yesterday, there was a 100% chance of rain, but during the entire day, it didn't rain, but it didn't rain until like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. So the day itself was pretty good. But right now, yeah, a little breezy. No rain currently right now. It seems to have stopped, but yeah. So we'll see what happens. But definitely, there's some things that we want to do. There's some more upgrades that we want to do to our apartment. We want to get a new refrigerator because our refrigerator, you look over there, our refrigerator is like 7 years old, 7 or 8 years old now. And then, so we want to get a new one of those. My wife wants to get a nice refrigerator, you know, with better energy efficiency and colors and, you know, all that stuff. And that's, I'm down with that. And then the other thing we need to do, this couch, we need to get a new couch. This, I don't know what it is, but furniture in Korea is expensive. We went to Starfield Mall and they had a furniture store there. You're looking at 2 and 3 million won. And if you look at the exchange rate, it's about what, 1350-ish is the exchange rate. So for $1,000, it'd be 1,350,000 won for $1,000. So when you're looking at 2 million won, you know, 2 or 3 million won for a 3-seater couch. Obviously, the name brand comes into play, and so they got you over there. That's what it is. They know you need furniture. They're going to charge the high prices. But this couch is not as comfortable as it looks. We want something a little bit bigger, something a little bit deeper, that has the cloth on it, you know, something that's real comfortable to where, you know, if you sit down, you could fall asleep and sleep all night or whatever. This isn't one of those couches. You know, I could sit here for like 2-3 hours, watch a movie, and then, you know, my back, and my wife doesn't like it. She gets more frustrated with our couch than I do, but yeah. So we're on the market for looking for a couch. So I think maybe Thursday or sometime soon, we're going to go to some other local places to check furniture, and I think I'll make a video on that. So there's a place that's about 30 minutes away where they've got a number of different furniture stores, kind of like a strip mall type of location thing, where it has a lot of furniture stores. So we'll try going and seeing what they offer. They got a lot of couches like this, but these aren't really that comfortable. For like an Airbnb or minimalist living, yeah, these are absolutely fine. But for our own personal taste, this isn't the type of couch that we want. We want something that's going to be comfortable. Probably want a big 3-seater like this, and then have like a little 2-seater. So it kind of got a little L configuration thing. So, but you're going to pay some money for furniture here in Korea. But other than that, yeah, that's what we got going on. Nothing terribly exciting. And again, it ends up cloudy and gray here in Korea. So you can see that See how the tops of the little picnic areas and the child play area is all wet? That's because of the rain. So, but it won't be too bad. So, but yeah, other than that, enjoying life and doing the hobby stuff. As far as hobby stuff, this is going to be interesting. I've got some more. Matter of fact, I'll show you. We've got our K2 Plus, which is a 3D printer, and it's all decked out. I'm doing a project here, which is for my daughter. So it's kind of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So I've been working on that, and that's going to be, this is a huge thing. So going to be messing with that. Got other little models that I've been working on, and I've done some upgrades to the system. Actually changed out the bed area. That was the old bed and heated bed there, and this one is more flat. So I installed that, and we're going to be doing some other stuff with that as well. This is my servo guy. Started printing him, and boom. It says, I understand that the apartment complex where you live is around 8 or 9 years old. Yes, it absolutely is. So, and there's the rest of the hobby. All kinds of stuff going on. Let me see if I can get this back to where we're going so we can see what's going on. Yeah. Let's see. Now I can look online and I can see what we got going on. Having a Korean spouse helps, especially if you're living in South Korea, which is absolutely true. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to retire here. Well, no, I take that back. I might be able to get, if I wasn't married, I might be able to get an F5-13 visa, but I would have to meet some requirements. But honestly, if I wasn't married to my wife, I don't think I'd retire in Korea. I would probably go to Thailand, maybe Philippines, or some other country. Yeah, but the wife is keeping me. I'm the keeper according to the wife. So yeah, but it definitely helps. And because she reads, writes, and speaks Korean, my Korean, I can order food, I can transportation, I can simple conversations and things like that. But yeah, she definitely helps. But because we've been gone for so long before we came to retire here in Korea, the way that they do things in Korea is very different than the way they do it in the United States. And my wife was Americanized. So how you do banking, how you pay bills, how you sign up for phone service, and how you do, all of these things are very different than what she remembers of when she was younger, when we got married and then we left. So even though she speaks the language fluently, she's still faced with, I don't know how to buy property. I don't know how to do Korean banking because she didn't do that, before. And Korean bank has changed over the decades. We've been together 35 years. So yeah, a lot of things have changed over that time. Even if you think about the United States, how you did banking in the United States, what's the difference between 35 years ago and today? And there's huge differences. So imagine those differences are multiplied by the fact that you've been gone, and now you come back to Korea, and all of these new experiences, all these new ways of banking and doing things, which everybody here has grown up learning how to do, and it's just, oh, that's normal. For us, that's not normal. So yeah, there's kind of some things that go on with that, and even though the wife speaks Korean, they assume that she knows everything that they know when it comes to banking and this and that and all these other things. And it's like, no, I've been in the States, I don't understand this, can you explain it? So there's a little frustration that goes on with that. Another comment was, I understand the apartment complex where he lives around yeah, it's about 8 years old. So I think it's 8 years old. 8, maybe 9 years old. They just finished painting the outside. We've got a real good apartment complex manager and staff. Like I said, we've got security, we've got underground parking. They're really good about the landscaping and the maintaining of the apartment complex. And you've got a big mix of people, Korean nationals. You have contractors at the local military base and their families, and of course military members. So we've got a pretty good mix. And it's far enough away from base that, we could walk and to get on post if we wanted to, and we've done that before when we first got here. To drive on post, maybe 5 minutes we can get on post, we're good to go. But it's far enough away that we don't have to worry about, the bars and the clubs that are right outside the gate. So there's a buffer zone. And as you walk from right outside the gate to where those bars and stuff are at, then you come to this buffer zone, and then you come to where our apartment building is at. And so it's a good blend, but we're not into the clubs and bars thing, and we don't hear any of that here. So it's as far as proximity to the military base, it's really nice here. Not as nice as Asan Technical Valley, which is about 30 minutes away from Camp Humphreys. But that city, Asan, is very, very brand new. And a lot better in regards to walkability, the number of restaurants and stores and shops that you can get to that are right outside the apartment complex. It's very big. Here, there's some restaurants and things, and we have our open air market. But down in Asan, there's more. There's like a grocery store that's real close by. Just a lot more amenities in that area than here, and it's more up to date. So yeah, there's always, you got to make your choices. So, but other than that, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's see what somebody said earlier on. Korea is completely different from the United States. Very different type of lifestyle. It does help having a Korean spouse. One moving to Korea should also learn and accept the reality of Korean culture, but also understanding that we will always be a foreigner there, and I'm okay with that. That's from Headspace and Timing. Yeah, must be military. I'm guessing Headspace and Timing on 50 cal or whatever. I don't know. Got another comment. You're living the good life, it seems. Continue to enjoy the good life. I will. Thank you very much. Then John Hutchinson says, where is a good bank to deposit your military retirement check, Social Security, and VA disability? That's a good question. For me, since I'm a military retiree, I have access to the military base, and they have Navy Federal Credit Union. So we opened up a Navy Federal Credit Union account while we were in Oahu before we came to Korea. And because I contacted the branch here, and they said, yeah, if you're a retiree, you can't come here and open an account, so open it when you're in the United States. So that's what we ended up doing. I transferred my pension and other things to go to Navy Federal Credit Union, and once we confirmed that those funds were going to that account and transferred over, we closed our old bank accounts and we kept with the Naval Federal Credit Union, and boom, there you go. I did do a video where, matter of fact, let me see if I can pull that up, and I'll post that in the comment section. I did a video where it was talking about how your Social Security and your VA disability can go to foreign bank accounts. I did a video on that. Let me see if I can find that. Retired by gas. Hot, humid. My Korean wife and I moved to the KK capital of Colorado. Check that video out. That was funny. Warhammer. Security, retired upgrades. Nice. Big prints. Oh, here it is. Here it is. And let me go ahead and post that link, because this shows that your DFAS, like your military pensions, your VA disability, and Social Security can be deposited into foreign bank accounts. So let me pop that in right here so you can check that out. I just posted that. Then Adele says, do you keep a US-based phone line open to manage US bank accounts? That's another very good question. What we ended up doing is, what was it? Talkatone. I ended up getting Talkatone. That's an app that you can get on your phone, and you can have a US-based phone number, and then you just use the app, and it's just like having a US phone number. I ended up getting that, and because of exactly the situation that you talked about, so it's good, you know, for some verification and two-factor authentication, you know, with accounts and things like that. But some banks now will accept foreign phone numbers, so you can still get that two-factor authentication and so on and so forth. Some don't. But I know with Navy Federal Credit Union, when we went there, we updated. They have our foreign address and I think they got our foreign address. They definitely have our our Korean phone number. So there's that. But let me, what is that doing up there? Got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. No, I don't want that. DFAS, Social Security, and VA disability. Deposit into foreign FOREIGN. There we go. Foreign bank accounts video. There we go. So yeah. If anybody has any questions on that, you can check out that video when I go to the websites. So yeah, you can definitely see those, and that is kind of huge, because now you can get those things actually deposited into your foreign bank accounts, and it has to be a participating country. Korea is one of those countries, so that's good. Other things talking about transferring money from the United States Bank to Korea. You could always do an international bank transfer or wire transfer, but you're usually going to have more fees. You're going to get a poor exchange rate, but to get and transfer money, check out the app, the Wise app, which is, I've seemed to have found through recommendations of other people, they seem to have the lowest fees of any money transfer place. So Wise, W-I-S-E, is one of those, and it's really good. I haven't personally used it, but I do have an account. I download it on my phone, so that way if I ever have to transfer money, I can do so. I've had some people that I know talk about how they send money to people here in Korea using Wise from their American bank account. I've had people that I know that are living currently in Thailand that use Wise to transfer funds to, you know, banks, their bank account in Thailand. And again, the whole idea is to minimize the fees that they have to pay. So it's cheaper fees, usually a better exchange rate than what you would get if you used an international bank wire transfer. So yeah, that's what we got going on. So yeah, so that's gonna be it. I think we kind of went over everything now. And if you've got any questions, you can email me. As a matter of fact, let me put this in here. Questions or concerns, email me at officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. And make sure I spelled everything correctly. There was a time when I put the email address on videos and it was wrong address. I left out a letter or whatever. So if you got any questions or anything, you can email me and I can respond to you. I always answer my emails 100%. John says, I just happened to stumble on this video, but how do we know when you are doing these things live? That's a good question, John. Usually I'll do it about the same time, early morning here in Korea, so whatever time it is in the United States. I'll do it a couple times a week. I haven't really nailed down a schedule. Just been kind of loose with that. I do most of my live streaming in the morning. So, the wife's still asleep. I've already woken up. I'll do some streaming or make a video or whatever, live stream a video. So usually it's generally about this time. But I haven't nailed down a schedule saying it's always going to be on Tuesday and Thursday here in Korea. So maybe I'll get to that place. We'll see what happens. But if you like and subscribe to my channel, and then whenever a video pops up or I get to a point of where I do nail down and I schedule a stream, you can get notified of that. So yeah, I need to work on that, don't I? Yeah. I don't know. Just being retired, I still got all these things that I do, but for the most part, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll get to the point of where I'll actually schedule it. But we've got other things that go on that we do. So like Tuesdays and Thursdays are off days. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays we go to the gym, but that's usually around 9 o'clock. So yeah, it's I don't know. Just kind of hang out and see what happens. But if you do like and subscribe, you can always see these videos because they do get saved to YouTube, and you can always go back and watch those. We got a question that says, I understand that having a Korean spouse allows one to have a variety of options such as credit and debit cards with bank accounts in South Korea. Actually, you don't have to have a Korean spouse to be able to have access to a Korean bank. If you have a visa that allows you to stay in Korea, it could be education visa, it could be work visa, it could be digital nomad. I imagine you could even do the F513 if you met all the requirements, but that's kind of a big visa. It definitely helps if you have a Korean wife, but you would have to have an income that is twice the GNI of Korea, so that is an option. But if you're here on some other type of visa, then your visa is approved, then you can open up a Korean bank account. Then you can get a debit card, a bank card with your bank account. And then after a period of time showing, how much you get paid, how much you have in savings and so on and so forth, kind of a probationary period once you get your Korean bank account, then you have the opportunity to get a credit card. But we don't do the Korean credit cards. We've got our own American credit cards. It's good enough for us. We've got our bank cards, so money comes from our Korean bank and we can pay, and we've never had any problems. So, but yeah, now there's more and more foreigners coming to Korea, and so some Korean banks will actually cater to foreigners and have an English-speaking staff. They've got their bank apps which you can access and that are in English, have English language options. Some of them even have call centers where you can call and talk to English-speaking staff. So, and I'm not sure which of those banks do that. The one that we do, it's pretty much Korean. They service Americans and foreigners, but really we just deposit money and we take money out, and that's kind of the end of it. We got some automatic draft payments for like property tax and some other things, other normal like gas, city gas expenses and so on and so forth for the heating. But yeah, a lot of banks are catering more to foreigners because we have more foreigners coming in, and Korea is going to have to rely on more foreigners to do labor and things like that because of we're getting to the point of where it's a super aged population here in Korea, kind of like what it is in Japan. So they're looking to bring in more foreigners to do more jobs here in Korea. But what's interesting to note is that I just read an article, the difference between last year and this year, there has been actually a drop in foreign workers of 21%. So not sure the reason why, but Korea is definitely looking towards getting more foreign workers as the population continues to age. And there's a lot more. We were surprised at the number of foreign workers that were here now versus when we were here, like when I was here in the military when did we leave here? 2002. And I think we ended up in 2007. I think we came back to visit back then. But there were some foreign workers, but now there's a lot of Filipinos, there are a lot of, like as we did the walkthrough in the Ville, you've got a lot of Middle Easterns in kebab restaurants and fast food. You have a lot of those people working in the restaurants around here as well. So definitely a larger influx of foreigners working now than compared to when it was before. So yeah, it's interesting to note. So with that, I think what we're going to end up doing is we're going to call this video done. So again, if you look through the comments, you can see I posted my email address. So if you want to contact me, just to say hi, or if you have questions, or whatever it is, I answer those 100%. Even the crazy people. So if you're watching this, you're crazy as I am. So welcome to the family. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting, kind of documenting our journey and our life here, being American expats here in Korea, which is an interesting journey. And then, yeah, we'll do some trips and stuff. And the good thing is my channel just got monetized. So maybe I'll make a couple of nickels on this, and then I'll throw that into the mix, and we'll do some more painting, do some more hobby stuff. That's always going to be a thing. But yeah, definitely going to get some videos of some of our trips. Definitely going to Vietnam this September. That's the plan for that. And I think we're going to hit the ocean sometime soon for 4 or 5 days. So we'll get some videos on that. And then maybe I've had some people that are curious as to what it's like to be in a Korean convenience store. What do those look like? And so thinking about making some videos on that, record some videos. I go through a convenience store, show you kind of the layout, and a little bit different. And they have stores that are open 24 hours a day that don't have any clerks. That's kind of interesting. So yeah. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then yeah, I think it's going to be it for today. So kind of running out of things to say, and I got to get ready. Going to be hitting the gym, so I got to get ready for that. And I'm just about done with my shake. So with that, like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. And for guys like John and others, if you're just watching this, don't really have a schedule, but usually around this time is when I stream during the week. Sometimes I do it on the weekends, but if you like and subscribe to the channel, you can definitely go back and watch the videos of the streaming, and you can contact me if you got questions or whatever. Just want to say hi. Well, that's an option as well. Maybe one of these days I'll have a hard, fast schedule. I'm retired, so I don't know about that. We'll see. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate that. I hope you have a great week. And it's Wednesday here in Korea, so that means it's probably Tuesday, maybe-ish, in the United States or wherever you're at. Maybe it's a different day. But hang in there. The weekend's coming. All right? And take care. We'll see you on the next video. Peace. Additional apartment option sounds good. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. So we'll see you on the next one. See ya. All right. Now let's figure out how do we close this. Oh yeah, press that button right there.